God understands what each and every one of us goes through. And again, God has empathy for us. At the same time, he wants us to understand that we are loved when we are corrected. And again, I say this again, I urge everyone who has ever received the word from somebody, even if somebody just came up to them and said, maybe they didn't say, I have a word from God for you, or maybe they just came and just said something to you that bothered your spirit, and you never went back to God about it. And so you're believing what they told you, either about somebody or about something. And so now you're grieved in your spirit when that person had a lying spirit, right? And so all I'm trying to say is, we as Christians have to use discernment, and we also have to realize that we don't have to answer to everyone who comes at us with words and thoughts and darts, right? We don't have to respond. We have to use discretion, and we have to know how to, I heard people say before, respond and not react. But sometimes we don't even have to respond. We can let God fight for us. Let what we do in our light that shines for God's sake, right? For God's glory. As it says, glorify your Father in heaven, glorify your Father and men will see, right? And they will glorify your Father in heaven. Do good works, men will see, and your Father in heaven will be glorified, right? And so sometimes your very work, the very work that you do, can silence the enemy, can silence the naysayers, can silence the voice that wants to point the finger at you, right? And so we have to realize that we don't have to respond to every post, everything that somebody says about us, right? You know, even Paul said it in the scriptures. Like, we don't have to do that. We don't have to go about defending ourselves. Our job is to stand for Christ, to defend Christ. Even Stephen, when he stood in his persecution and his trial unto death, right? He stood and he talked about Jesus, right? He defended Jesus while he was about to be stoned to death, right? And then he ended up being stoned to death. So in his testimony, he testified of Jesus. In his persecution, he testified of Jesus. He didn't make it about himself. He didn't say, oh, I go through this and y'all don't know what I go through. You know, even when Paul stood before in his trial, when he stood before Festus and Agrippa, whatever their name is, he defended what he stood for, but he didn't defend himself. He defended what he stood for, which was Jesus. And so all I'm trying to say is, it's okay to go through things. God sees it, but that doesn't